Yeah.
I can't even like sit through. I can't even be in thinking I'm in a good mood and sit through like a podcast without like running off.
You're always going to be that girl that threw up during the podcast.
I mean, that's always going to be me from here on out.
Should we try?
I mean, we can.
Let's try. Okay. 3, 2. I don't know what just happened, and sure, this is the beginning of the episode. However, I will tell you that Kelly and I have already had mess, which is funny because I think this was going to be the first time ever, Kelly, you could agree, that we weren't doing our whole like, oh, what a difficult week we've had, and this is going wrong. We actually had a decent attitude, I suppose. Do you want to say what had happened? So literally, if watching this episode, this is the second recording. This is not the original. No. What happened?
If you've seen this episode, if you've watched this episode of Typical People, I just had my very own Julie moment at the end of the episode on the runway because and like out of nowhere.
I'm gonna tell you, I get tired of like
I'm sorry. Hold on one second.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just had my own Julie real life experience.
I'm speechless, I think.
I'm sorry if you had to hear all that. Oh my gosh.
When I'm telling you,
I apologize, Ronnie, that you had to witness that. Like, listen to that.
Well, in the regards of us recording it, we're not next to each other. So I'm like, I can't even walk over. And all I could hear is noise, but I'm trying to paint the picture too. And we're not glorifying or exploiting this terrible situation, but legitimately, before we do a show, just as like a backstory, we, first of all, we email all day and we text and we get ready for the show. And then we get on and we talk for, 15 minutes just to kind of like talk about stuff. And so I had not seen Kelly look remotely groggy, not even like tired. I could see if you were tired, nothing. In fact, you were
went from wine to Gatorade.
Well, you did say you were drinking. I do remember that part, but you were walking around and I said, oh, I like your sweater. Like, if anything, I thought you had like your mojo. In fact, I said, oh, are you going on a date later? That's what I thought was more, you were more in that vibe. Holiday spirit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
We set to get started. And we're like, what was it, Kelly? Like 5 minutes in? About 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
And in the middle of it, she did say she was having wine. And I go, you said, I'm gonna drink wine. I said, oh, I'll have water. Or I said, I don't have water. Bummer. That's it. You're drinking your wine. And in the middle of it, she gives me the finger, you guys, not the middle finger, but the little like hold up. And then she walks away. And I'm like, okay, that was fast, but what's up? All of a sudden, and I'm thinking, that's a weird cough. And it just kept going and just kept going and kept going. Do you feel better now?
I mean, I feel better now. I mean, my throat burns. I don't think I've thrown up since like, who knows when. I mean, years. And I literally had 2 sips of my wine. So I don't know if that was like just the trigger or what, but oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, I was feeling a little bit off today, but like not like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, not anywhere in that ballpark. I wasn't like hallucinating like Julie.
You weren't sweating. Yeah, you weren't like, sweating. Hey, I'm a little tired. You were actually like on the other side of things. So I had never seen anything like that.
Woo,
it just goes to show, if you think our show's shitty, you're right. But if you think that we really put the truth into the show and we really embody the characters, you're also correct.
There's no hide. I mean, look at my face. Like there's no hiding that.
I'm sweating for you. That's how bad it was. And it's the weirdest thing because yes, in this episode they go over the Heimlich, and I'm over here like, well, I'm not next to her, so I can't. I just gotta hope. So I hoped, and I'd never seen anything like that. Not through Kelly, especially. You look like You went from champ to chump in about 3 seconds. I was like,
oh, seriously, holy.
I'd never seen that.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So
it's okay. That's a little
real up in here,
behind
I'll tell you
the
that.
scenes. Yeah. Coming off the last week's episodes, we have them just kind of doing a couple things, the Swiftical musical, then turns to the Carter musical, and then the network thing with Method Man. So there's so much hope. Nothing happens. Always a fail. Relatable. But this episode, we kind of look at the world of fashion through the way of Julie, and we are so optimistic about it. But as it will go, as it always goes, it's not going to go great. Kellie, let's get into the episode because this is an exciting one. Julie with fashion is one thing. Billy coming off the gate talking about the blood discrepancy, which is a true thing, which is, it sucks so much. So it's great the way they make the humor out of it. And even Billy within his own navigation and getting an audition and moving forward and kind of balancing two different worlds. I love the episode right before the season 2 finale. So this was good. It was
a really good one. There's a lot of good singers in there too. There was definitely a lot of really funny one-liners and jabs at different celebs and industry people, which I always find hilarious.
Yeah. And well, usually it's Kevin Spacey, which
which it was today too. But then we had some Matt Damon one in there. We had, there's some good stuff. But it's just it's funny too, to think how would those jokes play out in the climate today with the whole cancel culture and all of that. But
I think they would find a way. I think they would find a way to navigate just because they are so smart. The way this show's put together is really quick and witty, and I just feel like it would be maybe a bit challenging, but they were already pushing the envelope at that time. So I just feel like they'd find a way to navigate. I do like the way it was my text message to you immediately as we're getting ready for the episode. Sometimes we'll exchange what we think is funny. There was something where Billy said, my life's falling apart. And by the way, it wasn't that good to begin with. And I was like, I've never been seen more.
I know, there was such good stuff. I know, and I was gonna text you when it's like, oh, you feel fat. Oh wait, I mean warm.
Oh, that was Marilyn.
To Julie. Yeah. And it's I feel that. I
love how excited she got. She was like, oh yeah, the Spanx, and this is what Julie had wanted, was the regifting so she can look good for the fashion show. And then Marilyn goes, oh my god, this is huge. And Julie's like, well, I mean, it's a good thing or whatever. And then Marilyn goes, oh no, the Spanx, they're huge. She's such,
I know, she's a shit talker. Metabolism skipped a generation. It's she's always got to throw those zingers in.
She's like, dear. Yeah, the zingers, they're all over the place with this show. So where do you want to start? Let's start
at the beginning, because I kind of love how Julie just donates blood to get cookies.
Right on brand, right on character, but it did
because they're the best cookies of the city.
It beat her up a little bit because that's what eventually got her sick. So there you go.
Yeah.
But it did, like I said, it's nasty, the whole situation at hand, but it was really fun for Billy to have these sarcastic jokes like, oh, you could be, this drug addict, this, all these things, but Lord forbid you ate some ass and all of a sudden you can't give you can't donate, and it's like, again, this show gets really funny to me because these jokes shouldn't be funny, but they have to be, because that's the only way you could sort of get through situations that seem a little bit challenging or whatever. And Billy has a great episode because he has intention to try to be part of the 1010s, I think.
I mean, it's Fashion Week, and anyone that's ever watched Fashion Week, been a fan of Fashion Week, gone to Fashion Week events, Fashion Week is very, very superficial in a sense. It's all about beauty. It's all about high fashion. And, if you're not part of that world every day, it can be a little intimidating, and make you self-conscious to go in there. And that's kind of Billy's take on going in and just trying to elbow his way in on those 10, the 1010s. And he finally gets in.
Well, Julie has a great mindset about it. She's like, listen, I got it set up. This is how it works. You talk a lot of shit to them to their face. They find it irreverent, a reverence about it, And so she's like, hey, dumb bitch, did you forget to eat, you stupid whore, or something like that. And the girl's like, I like you.
It's like
So
you
I
guys
guess
would
you have
sold
to know
somebody big enough.
you have to know your audience a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But I like how they snuck into the party. It's like, which bit are we gonna do? And it's like, let's do Donatella. And they're just like, throwing Italian words out, just walk in.
Yeah.
And and I've always said that, and I've always told people that if you walk into a place like you belong there, no one will question you.
In regular life, I don't know if you go with this rule, but that whole don't ask for permission, just plead for forgiveness. Yeah. I don't know if I really believe that all the way through in regular life, but in situations like that, you have to do it. And we've all done it. We've done it. We didn't even know we were doing it. You just know that there's an event. I want to be a part of it. I'm going to find some story, and I didn't pay for tickets. I don't have the hookup, but I'm going to find a way in. I remember with World Pride, Madonna was performing at the pier, and my friend, she was like, no, we're going to get in. I was like, I mean, we might not. And she's like, yeah, fuck it, we're getting in. And we were in there. we were in there. Great performance. We're just, this is probably the last time people got together in this capacity before COVID. That's probably where COVID was born, to be honest with you.
Like Julie's montage of germs.
Yes, that's how it started. But my friend was like, no, we're gonna get in. I was like, but you gotta understand, this is not only it's World Pride, but it's Madonna, maybe not. She's like, bullshit, we're getting in. And we did. So credit to Marcy. She always knows how to get us through the door. So it was always
when I was in my early 20s and first in LA, that was always the bit. I remember we got into everything everywhere. And I had a doppelganger that was in the music industry somehow, because I would get into places I had no business, and people talking to me, having full-on conversations that there is no way that, I know we didn't know each other. But it's like, when Elton John's walking by and it's like, hey, how you been?
Yeah.
Hi.
Sometimes that does it.
I just got off the boat from Texas. No. I never found out who that person was, but it lasted for years.
With your extremely short haircut, by the way. So
yes, with my extremely short.
They thought you were Natalie Rotano. What was that girl's name from the Pamela Anderson TV show? That's who they thought you were.
No idea who the person was, and I wish I'd never found out. I wish I would have, but it happened for years, and I always just went with it.
What industry you think she was in?
It had to be music, because it was a lot of musicians that would always come up, and executives and stuff from the music business. But I got my friends record label meetings and all these things based off of just, I look like somebody.
Well, that's what you got to do sometimes. Sometimes you just got to say oh, nice seeing you, and then start your story. Again, it's not what you want to do, but sometimes you find yourself doing it based on the event and whatever. And for these two, it is their career, and you find a way. Julie found a way. She knew she was a comic, and Christian Soriano was going to do comics instead of models, which is also a little bit of a joke in itself, how sometimes they try to do these really unique, interesting runway, shows.
Well, it was his clown line.
Yeah. So the over accentuating that story, I thought was really funny. But for our precious Julie, it was perfect, because it was right place, right time, Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Billy was the perfect wingman to set that up for her, to get her booked on that.
Which you have to do. Great. Yeah, you have to do. If I've been with Kellie, it's well, do you know who she is? You have to do that. It becomes an act of our own. It's just all right, you don't have to communicate, but we know that we have to have each other's back like that.
Well, and everybody wants to be in the know. Nobody can't not know.
Yeah. You have to charm the room sometimes.
You have to.
And it worked for Billy too, because the 1010s did show him some support. They looked a little stuffy, if you ask me, but they probably had a lot of power, so I'm not going to knock. And I like the little notes about oh, well, now I could understand why we wouldn't donate blood. We were at Marc Jacobs and he was saying goodbye to Grindr, and now it makes a little more sense. And then he had a John Varvatos comment. It was perfect. I was like, okay.
They had a Truman Capote comment. There was so many things.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, because he's so confident that he wants to be accepted by them. That was the question I was going to ask you. Why do you think he does want to be accepted? Is it strictly career, or is there a part of him that's sure, I got Julie, my best friend, but Julie's in a relationship? And granted, not that he was going to get any relationship out of it, but is there a part of him that has a void, do you think?
Well, I think he's always had self-esteem issues when it comes to his attractiveness. We hear that a lot in the different episodes. like, you know, especially like on the National Coming Out Day when it was like, you know, there's the bears, the wolves, and like all that. You remember? Like he
I
always
remember.
had like.
I see a lot of myself in him, so yes, I remember.
But
for
I
sure.
think that he's always had a little bit of that, you know, which everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, you know, when he can fit in to any group that he wants to fit in with, it just makes him feel better about himself.
Okay,
But
so
then he always realizes that he doesn't need it at the end of the day.
So you're saying it was a little bit of a where does he see himself in the space, nothing to do with career or come up at all.
Yeah, I think it was because he
Okay.
was separating those things. I think it was more like he wants to be a cool kid when he when he's in that cool kid space. It's like, you
Yeah.
know, he wants to, you know, be with the cool kid or be one of that, but he doesn't need it like every day. Because
Well,
that's
I
why he
wouldn't.
said he was living like that double life, you know?
I guess there is that duality that we all have. Because me as a person, I'm like, I just want to rock out with whoever I want to rock out with. But I will tell you, if there's a Marc Jacobs party, I would like to go. You know, so there's that part where I'm like, I'm not thirsty, but if you called me, you're like, oh, we have access to go to this party. I would say, shit,
Yeah.
let's go. And then all of a sudden, when you think that, then you start looking at yourself. You're like, do I fit in? You know, I don't have maybe the cachet as far as money to have like, you know, my look together. It does become a thing. It's weird when you're like, you're not impressed by something, but then once you get in that space, you sort of have to be. But I asked the question to you because I didn't know if it was along the lines of the first season finale where he wanted to get in with those dads. Remember, he wanted to get in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wanted to know what you thought. I was like, is this a come up situation or is this him just trying to fit in?
I don't think so for this because he doesn't care about fashion in that way. I think that it was more like, because he even says like, you know, there are the cool kids, like, you know. So I think it's more of an acceptance in any group of people.
Okay.
You know, where it's just like, you know, he wants to go in and just kind of fit in the room.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know, you want, because you can get in the room, but you have to do something to stay there, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, he found his way in. Julie found her way into fashion. But now what happened with Billy is he also had a job at the same time, right? He was auditioning to become. Now this is odd because now you're balancing all these different worlds. You know, you're balancing your career, but then that doesn't match.
Right. And that's what he talks about because he had done this audition to basically be a voiceover for an animated series where they're teaching kids about, you know, their potty training, which is hilarious within itself.
Yeah.
But then come to find out when he goes to shoot it, he's in this costume and it becomes a live action thing. And he's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And he's talking with the director. He's like, okay, so you're not going to be able to see my face, right? Because I'm not going to do this. And he's like, oh, so you're afraid if they see your face on this, like the cool kids are going to think you're cool. And he's like, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. And then, you know, they're like, no, you're going to get ahead, whatever. But then it turns out that there is a hole where you can see his face. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, this was like my one thing where I was like, no.
Yeah. And I don't blame him for navigating his career. I think it's smart, don't you?
I mean, the song, wipe, wipe, wipe till you see the white.
It reminded me of the Charmin commercial, which is like, hello, clean bottom. Something like that.
But I feel like his song was more offensive.
Yeah. Yes. He hates it. It's good for him, but I think people do have to navigate like that. You know,
I mean, he just wanted health insurance. His shoulder hurt.
Yes. And that's another dramatic situation. Just, you know, aspiring for your career and your art and what makes you happy. And you can't even like make sure you're healthy. Like that to me is just kind of seems crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
But to have to mix that, and there are people who have to mix all that. You know, I have a friend who worked on a project and it was very kind of in that vein. It was different, but it was like in the more wholesome of a program. And so then all of a sudden you see that his Instagram couldn't be as thoughty as he would like to, maybe, you know. So it does happen that way sometimes, you know. I do feel bad for him. I wish he wouldn't have had to show his face. That way he could have kind of just took the money, got the health insurance and called it a day, you know. But we couldn't have this show without these problems occurring. And so it sucks for him.
Absolutely.
The guy in craft services was terrible. And
oh my gosh.
It's all too real sometimes.
You know, it really,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it actually is, which makes it all the more like, ew.
Yeah. I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff he said. It's like, how are you just going to be talking like that? You can't talk that
At
way.
a kid, like at a kid show, like, ew. Perv.
Oh,
and like,
yeah.
how do you get to that point?
Regardless
it happens all the time, but
regardless of the fact that it was two adults, talking, still like the atmosphere, but it'll be that where you're on sets and you're just like, wow, like sometimes makes me wonder, and it's not a knock on Crafty or craft services, but at the same time, I'm like, if this person could speak that way, I'm not sure that his little jar of M&Ms has just M&Ms in there. Like that protein might be.
I just had an episode. Really?
I think you had an M&M, and that's what happened. That's why you had the.
Gross.
Anyway, okay, stop it. I'm done. Anyways, we have Arthur also supporting Julie, but he always gets the last bit of attention and thank you. He's over here doing all the work, all these soups that he's putting together, and she's like, oh, screw it, who cares? It's like, or no, she says it stinks. She says the soup stinks. It's like, he's such a good boyfriend. And he also comes in later to talk about him and Marilyn come in together to help each other, which I liked that. Yeah,
writing the recaps together. So they bonded so much they didn't even notice when Julie left.
And she was just determined. Oh, and then they had the moment from The Shining. I forgot about that. She had that moment too, where we see the dogs, which is also really fun.
All those hallucinations were hilarious.
As far as Arthur and Marilyn, it's great because Marilyn's kind of telling him like, listen, you're so much more fun if you're not drinking. And he's like, well, that's the joke. I actually am drinking this time, because
right now.
She chews him out all the time. The part that made me happy is sometimes, we do this little program and it's always like, oh, why are we doing it? It's fun, sure. But it makes me feel really good when we know that like Julie, that is her job in the situation. That is her, like, she has to get these words out. And who would have known that some of the coverage that they had to do where Arthur stepped in was a show that you don't necessarily like, but I thought
your favorite.
I thought of you right away because you know why? Because I will text you about, the great Kenya Moore, and you'll always be like, and then you will tell me every once in a while, not all the time, but every once in a while, you're like, well, I watched a couple episodes, and then you start to get into it. And I think that's what Marilyn had. Marilyn was like, this is the dumbest thing. Oh, but wait, this one did this to this one. Like you end up getting into it. And I guess that's true.
I think my favorite line of hers from that little montage was when she started watching Vanderpump Rules, and she's like, yeah, future generations are going to rename STDs like Jackson Stassi or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And that was at the height of that TV show too. So that is funny. That was really funny.
Oh my goodness. But we have to talk about this poor old choking woman at the cafe, and nobody knows how to do the Heimlich. Nobody can give CPR. Like,
well, for one, nobody cares.
Matthew's like sitting on her while getting read directions on how to do the Heimlich, and it's just hilarious. And he like sits on her and like luckily opens up her airwaves, and so she's fine. But it's insane that nobody knows how to save her, and nobody really cares. And Billy's on the phone getting his audition, and they're like, we're saving lives here, shut up. It's like they can't figure it out.
Matthew's physical comedy is so great because he's like, wait, is that like side straddle? Meanwhile, it's like a legitimate situation. Lola doesn't care. Billy doesn't care. And then it does turn into a situation. She's great. Thank God everything worked out. But Nate, he set something up, but they don't treat him very respectful in the situation. Like they all got so mad at that gal. What was her name? Mindy or something?
Her name was, hold on, I wrote it down. Her name was Marcy.
Marcy. Yeah.
Fuck you, Marcy. We all hate each other, but we agree. Fuck you.
We got some great zingers with Lola because Lola, of course, is the truther.
Oh my gosh, so Lola the whole episode.
Lola waits. I mean, she didn't even wait. It just happens. It's like Marcy's like, oh, this, and like very optimistic. And then Lola's like, well, that's what they want you to think. It's just like, so Lola's pissed. I didn't see Matthew as getting pissed, but he kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And I think Billy, he kind of was like, well, screw it. I'm part of the 1010, so screw you, dummy. You know? And they just
like, go
one after the
get on the bus, get out of here. And then Matthew's like, and sit at the back of the bus.
Yeah, you dummy.
And Nate's just like, I'm sorry. So she's walking out and she's trying to get out the door. And I guess she's not opening the door. And Matthew's all, push, bitch.
Push,
like,
dummy. Yeah. Oh, wait, real quick. How about when Matthew, as serious as he was, like in his mind, he was serious. He's like, okay, so you're supposed to do it like this. And he straddles the dummy. And he starts to sort of do a move that was not really.
He's like, don't yell at me, I'm just doing what you said.
Yeah, no, he was riding it. Yeah, he sure was. Oh my god, it was so funny.
Oh my gosh, they're just like, the three of them together is always such great comedy.
Yeah,
just, you know, even for the small moments that we get of them.
Well,
hilarious.
Specifically because they say, one of them said, I think it was Matthew, he was like, listen, we might not like each other, but once you come in here, you're not part of this, you know. And that's how we are as people. We get very defensive within our own. We could have all our problems, but the moment you come in, you know, stupid Marcy.
Poor Marcy.
Yeah.
She was just like,
okay.
And they were just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
And she had such a great, like, you know, presentation. She's like, okay, this is what we're gonna learn. You know, she started off so strong and it didn't go anywhere. So I felt bad, but you know what? Screw it. You don't come into this diner and expect to talk that way. You gotta assume the way that we all talk and yeah, get out of here. But Nate didn't do nothing. Nate didn't care, I suppose. He tried though. He did try.
He got me.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it's funny. And then, you know, lo and behold, Julie was determined to make it to that fashion show. And you know, no matter what, she had her fashion show Carrie Bradshaw moment.
Yes, she falls. But even before that, she's just like stinking up the place. Like she's determined to be there. They're just like, what is going on? But I did like the way she recovered. Like it looked like she was going to make it for a moment. Yeah. Of course, inevitably she does. Yeah, she falls. Yes, she has her Carrie Bradshaw moment.
But like to the extreme.
It was.
But Billy comes and tries to rescue her and gives up his spot with the 1010.
What a moment, because when he left the set from the commercial that he was doing, or the project he was doing, they were like, hey, give us that back. We need that, for the next person if you're quitting. And so we have this epic, runway moment where just everything's happening wrong. He looks silly in his costume. She looks silly in her clown fashion statement or whatever. And that's not enough. Her falling isn't enough. But then she decides she's going to throw up right in the old, well, I guess it was.
He's like, use my diaper. Use the diaper.
So it's so great to see that, though, his friendship and his bond with Julie, because he knew right there and then his cool factor would go away,
Yeah, and he gave it up for his friend.
Yeah. That's good.
He sure did. Speaking of Sex in the City, though, can we talk about that? Take a side note for a second.
Okay, here comes an aside.
I am so disappointed with the new series. Just like the premise of it.
So you loved the original, but
I did. There were a lot of things I did.
She was like, it was so terrible, I actually didn't like it anymore. I take that back.
No, I did. There were some things I think they dragged out a little too much, but overall I did. But I don't want to see the original series again.
And you think that's what it is?
I do. I just watched I watched the first two episodes. Then I watched the trailer for the upcoming rest of the season. Mm-hmm. And it just looks like the same situations, but older. And now she has to deal, doing things as a widow and it's
as a widow. Wait, does Big pass away? No, I'm joking. I saw it.
Spoiler alert. He got his Peloton ad.
Peloton did it. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. But it's I was really disappointed in that because she can't be interesting unless she's tragic, single, and going through the same shit. He couldn't have evolved and just shown up with her to the recital for 2 hours of his life. He wouldn't do that.
They could have had their confusing and complex relationship and fun and adventurous life together. You're right. It's we waited.
You don't see any of that. And even when Michael Patrick King was talking about it, he's like, they were never really together in the original series, and now they're not together now. And it's like, but that makes it exactly the same.
Well, the one hand is that there are real relationships that do happen like that, where the person does have to go on and start from scratch. And that's, of course, you know, you do need to see that sometimes. So it is challenging. But I think to the regards of what you're saying is now we're getting the same story. Now we're getting the gal in the city and her adventures. I think that happened, not that the show was similar, but I think Mindy Kaling, I used to watch that, the Mindy Project, and she had something so similar where it was like when she was kind of oopsie goofy, it was like the show, and then she got married, and then I think that like ended right away, and then it was like, oh, oopsie again. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is that
like she couldn't be interesting and happily married. It has to be, it can't be that. And that's just unfortunate, I think.
And I'm not going to knock I'm not going to knock the fact that she is a little bit displaced at the, you know, the fact that her writing career went more to being a podcaster, and how she was a little not as swift as she used to be, but she was acting like she's never talked about any of this stuff ever. She was so like, oh my God, I'm so old. And I'm so, it's like, you could still be married, and you were the girl all those years ago who was talking about all the stuff, you know, nasty stuff, this, that, and the other. And now all of a sudden you're so prudish. Like, that didn't seem very cool. But I think the show you make a lot of points. The one other point I was going to tell you is what I like about HBO also has hacks on it. I like hacks because that has a level of letting your characters grow. And in some way, we were so excited. We're like, oh, great. You know, Carrie Bradshaw's going to have, you know, she's going to go through these little levels of, you know, she's has gray hair now and she's aging up. We wanted to see that because half of us viewers were also a lot older.
I don't want to see her pretending to be young, like, or trying to fit into the younger crowd. Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see, like, when you get to be that age, how do you fit into the industry as it changes without having to alter who you are? It's like that to the extreme. That's what I wanted to see.
You're exactly right.
To see her. You know, we already saw when they almost got married, didn't get married, and she was all depressed in Mexico and all that shit. It just seems very repetitive to me, except it's a little bit more woke or whatever.
It also seemed like you knew this, I mean, with PR, but when working in radio, it seems like, oh, there goes the arc to 18 to 34 again. It's like, how many shows do we need? Did the Golden Girls not work?
I mean, the Golden Girls still work today. I'll tell you that.
So the idea, like, yes, do a show that could work for 18 to 34, but like showcase what 55 looks. And it, you know, as sad as it is, it almost seemed like Kim Cattrall's character was the most needed in the show. Like, honestly,
yeah. And it's funny because they're all talking. Okay, we're getting off on like this whole thing, but
I know we just dumped this one show.
Sorry. I'm sorry. They mentioned it in the show and it got me started, but I don't know. I just was expecting more from it and not more of the same. And it's like, I feel like instead of evolving, they're regressing a bit.
Yeah.
And and it's just, you know, maybe I'm, you know, in the minority of it, but
no,
I feel like it could have.
The only contrast I will say is that the initial part and the Peloton and all that, I was like a little let down, but going forward, I was like, okay, maybe we could find something, you know, maybe there is something there. And again, it is that situation where there very much can be, you know, you find your perfect guy, all of a sudden, you know, things are going to go great. And then, you know, something like that tragic can happen. So that part of it feels real. Her reconnecting with her friends feels real.
But then we're going to see her dating, and there's going to be some shit with her producer. And it's like, even when like the social media girl is like, you know, in the promo teaser, like, this is what they think is going to get viewers, where it's like, oh, you need to get your numbers up. Oh, sorry, your husband died. Get your fucking social numbers up. Like, really?
No, you're right about it. The idea that you could only, the idea, that's one thing I love about our show is like, we never, I mean, I think I could say this boldly, we never arc towards, like, we don't mind if a 20-year-old likes what we do, but we always, you know, not that I'm giving Kelly's age or my age, but we always,
I mean, we give it all the time.
We give it all the time. We boldly always just kind of say, this is what we do. And it does disappoint me. And I understand the business aspect of it when you're creating a project to arc towards like a younger or more modern or more crossover situation. But it would be nice for us all if podcasters or shows, showed other stories, and it's always the same. You're right. You are right, Kellie. Actually, it's the
Well,
same.
especially because in interviews they were talking about how everyone was talking shit about them being old, the way that they looked and their hair, all these, superficial things. So I was thinking, okay, if they're defending, we're getting, and that was Sarah Jessica Parker's thing. We're getting older. What are we going to do?
Mhm.
But then the storylines from what it seems, I mean, and hopefully as it continues, maybe it proves me wrong. I don't know. But it seems like it's her being older, trying to fit in, for a younger audience when there should be a way to balance. And that's kind of what I wanted to see, especially as like I get older and navigate these times too. I don't want to have to jump back in and, go pretend to be cool with the 25-year-olds. Like, I'm not about that life.
That is why this works, because we never do that. We always say, "Hey, dummy, 22-year-old." Well, that should be the name of our show. Hey, 22-year-old, that's stupid. No, we love the 22-year-old.
I have lived way too much life to try to go back and know.
But you're so right. I remember I was working as a producer on a podcast once, and I think I told you this before. One of the hosts was like, "Oh, not to me, but to the other teammates, don't call me uncle on the air," because he was a little. Not as he was trying to arc the young, the young vibe. And it's like, dude, you're not 26. We all know that. And whether they call you uncle or not, you're so worried about giving, like, I understand it, as I just said, for the business, but at the same time, it'd be refreshing if you're like, yeah, I'm 40 something, boom, and I'm still amazing. Like what we do.
Yeah. Well, and we see it with Billy and Julie, because remember when they got that job at BuzzFeed and they didn't even really, they were not really having like the seesaw desk, and the only thing Julie did was bring her dogs. Like, that's the only little thing she like fell into. But they didn't even want to skew themselves younger. They weren't even about that either. And they're, in their 30s.
Being young is not an achievement. I mean, how many shows do we need to see about the 25-year-old? Like, I'm fucking sick of it. Not saying that when I was 25, it was great that we had more opportunity, but it's nice to have like, a variety. So this was our Kellie's
Mine, sorry.
I just stole, like that
time for that.
Shady moment. No, so you're not gonna watch it, or you are?
I am. I want to see how it goes, and I'm a true fan of the arts and television. Everyone deserves to express it however they choose to. So I want to see how it goes, especially because I do genuinely like the characters. And I want to kind of see where they take it, and hopefully they'll prove me wrong and it won't be what it looks like it's going to be.
I think we're going to get some good stuff. I think we're going to get a little bit of romance is what I like. I always lean towards flirty energy, is always my favorite. And yeah, she's going to be hanging with the podcast producer a little bit. And
totally.
We are going to enjoy it. Anyways, this was fun. I almost feel like we just gave up on our show.
We didn't. I brought it back to Billy and Julie.
You did. You're great. You're so amazing. Does that wrap it up as far as them?
I think so. I think it does. I mean, we have one more episode left for this season.
It was nice though, real quick, that Billy did retain some information and he was able to get that cough drop out of Julie. Like he was able to.
He said he learned. He learned from, what was it, Choking Charlie or whatever his name was.
See, Marcy did something.
She did. Way to go, Marcy.
Yeah. But yeah, this is 3 episodes in a row, and it's really the basis of this whole show. But 3 episodes in a row, they get so close. But I think these 3 episodes, we were genuinely rooting for them. Like we wanted to see the musical go somewhere's Carter by way of Swiftical. We wanted to see Method Man usher them into something. So close, but yeah, I mean, Julie was never really going to be in the fashion world, but God, it would have been so great if she could have had that moment for her career. The great Judy Gold we saw as well, so that's just so intriguing. But yeah, that wraps it up for this one. We are looking at our finale episode of season 2, which is great. But with your permission, because you are the queen, you're the boss, will we do a stop down, maybe like a holiday episode and a year-end review?
Yeah, maybe? I hope so. I definitely want to do, Christmas is my favorite time of the year, so I definitely want to do some sort of holiday something. So, and we have to recap the year.
You don't strike me as the most festive, so that's so funny. I mean, you do because you're a nice baby. Okay, got it. You do because you're nice, but when you told me you go to Disneyland for your birthday, I was like, I want no parts of this shit.
I know, I was talking about that to one of my friends today, and I was like, but don't get me wrong, we go to California Adventure, get drunk, and then go ride the rides at Disneyland.
Okay. All right. With you, I would go at some point.
Always good times. You walk in with your Irish coffees, that's all good stuff.
This is the greatest thing about doing a show with somebody you've known for a long time is you just learn so much throughout the journey of it all. This wraps it up. We hope for more goodness with Billy and Julie and difficult people. We are difficult podcasters, and what a difficult episode. We had a girl or a lady. You're a lady. We had a lady who threw up on her first take. So does not get more difficult.
So sorry. Ugh.
Kellie really threw up 5 minutes into the recording.
So embarrassing, like out of nowhere. What the hell?
But I can't fathom because you didn't look sauced up or anything before, and then you let it rip, and I heard it.
Oh my god!
And then as soon as it was out of you, all of a sudden you're perfect again. This Kellie's she's an interesting lady.
Sorry, I didn't have time to reapply my makeup and not look so.
I tell you, Sagittarius they're their own thing. Well, thank you for your time. This was good, and we'll join you for another one in a week from now.
Yes. Okay?